In this video, I'm going to give you 5 tips for the upcoming Ravnica pre-release. Hello everybody out there. Ravnica pre-release is just around the corner and I'm coming to you with 5 tips for success at pre-release. Now, this isn't just for Ravnica pre-release, this is for all pre-releases. I'm going to admit I'm not a total pro at it, but I think these tips have worked out pretty well for me, and I think they'll work out for you too. Now, my number 1 tip, I'll get into it right away, is to know B.R.E.A.D. Alright, so B.R.E.A.D stands for bombs, removal, evasion, aggro, and dirt. Okay, so bombs, the B, is the cards that are going to win you the game, right? So there's a lot of cards that are good, but how are you going to actually win the game, right? So that's what we want to look at, and that's the number 1 thing that you want to pick. Like if you're going to be when you open your sealed pool, look for the bombs. Like what can you actually win with? All right. The second thing is removal. Okay, your opponents are going to have bombs, so you need to have ways to get rid of their bombs. All right, so you're going to look for any form of removal, right? So ideally you've got some pieces there, and just see what you can do. The next thing is E, which is evasion, right? So evasion are creatures with like skulk, unblockable, flying, menace, things like that. Things that make it hard for your opponent to block them, right? So evasive creatures are really important. If you can get them, you should try and take them. Okay, the A stands for aggro, which is just good aggro creatures. So like, if you look at it, it's like your basic creature is like a 2/2 for 2, like a bear. All right, but if you can get like 2/2 for 2 and it puts a +1 counter on something else, or when it dies it creates a 1/1 or something like that, those are good aggro creatures. So just look for something like that to fill out your deck. And the last thing is dirt. Right, so dirt is basically cards that you're not going to play. I would say dirt is like just crappy creatures. Sometimes it's hard to find them, but they're almost always there. The other thing is like cards with too high of mana cost. So sometimes you might get a mana cost card that's like really good, but it costs like 10 mana, right? And you're just never going to get there, because you got to keep in mind the composition of a sealed deck. All right, so when we're doing sealed, essentially you're opening 6 packs. Right now, in the upcoming pre-release, there's going to be a seeded pack and 5 other just regular booster packs. But so essentially, you got 6 packs. Now, the problem with that is that you don't you're going to build a 40 card deck. Okay, so let's look at the composition here. You're going to build a 40 card deck with, say, 40% lands, so about 16 lands and 24 other cards. Typically what I say is there should be 16 to 17 creatures, so 16 lands, 16 creatures, that brings you to 32, and like 8 of support cards. Typically removal or combat tricks or something like that. All right, so we're looking at that, and like if you're looking at getting a 10 mana cost creature out, all right, a 10 mana cost creature means you got to get 10 out of your 16 lands. You got to draw through like a ton of cards to get there, and these games aren't going to go for like 15 to 20 turns, so you're probably never going to be able to cast that card out. So I typically say any card that's like 7 mana or higher is generally shouldn't be considered for sealed. All right, so like even 6 mana is up there, but you could eventually get there. And it all depends. Like if you got ramp, like you found a bunch of Llanowar elves or something like that, then maybe you can get away with it. But other than that, you shouldn't play too high mana cost cards. Okay, and try and stay away from things that are just terrible, like 2 mana 1/1 vanillas or things like that. Obviously, ones like that. All right, so the next piece of advice I have is know the commons and uncommons. Everybody always focuses on the exciting cards in the set, and the exciting cards are, of course, the rares and the mythic rares, like planeswalkers and stuff like that. And of course, if you get one, that's great. But the problem is that most of your cards are not going to be rare or mythic rares. They are going to be commons and uncommons. So you got to know which ones are the good commons and which ones are the good uncommons. All right. So when you're looking and studying the cards, just focus on those. Right, like your rares, and by studying I mean what you're doing before you go to pre-release. right? Now, when you open your sealed deck, also focus on the commons and uncommons, all right? Typically, what will happen, or not typically, but sometimes what will happen is that a person will open up a card and they get like a really good card, and it's in their mythic rare or something. Like, let's say you even open up a planeswalker. Well, that's awesome. And a planeswalker is super powerful and sealed. But the problem is, if you don't have the right support cards to go with it, then you just got nothing, and your opponent's creatures will just destroy your planeswalker as soon as you get it out. So you got to have a way to keep that alive and make it work as a deck as a whole. Your deck can't be just based around one card, and it's the commons and uncommons that are gonna basically help you get there. All right. Now, the third thing is look at the color combinations. All right, so look at the color combinations for Ravnica. They have specific guild sets and guild color combinations that they're going to want to put out, right? So explore all the different color combinations and don't just get set on one. Like, sure, maybe you bought the Azorius pre-release pack, and yeah, you got the seeded pack, so there's going to be some good cards, and you're probably going to build Azorius, but you don't have to, right? That's the key. If your other 5 packs turn out to have no Azorius cards, like no blues and whites that are any good, and like maybe you can still make another pack, like another set, right, or a deck based on a different color set. So don't get locked into a color set. You're probably going to, based on your career, based on the pack that the guild that you signed up with, but you don't have to, right? So don't get stuck on that. All right, explore your options. See, sometimes people, like I said, it's the same thing when you get a planeswalker, you want to build around it, but you just might not be able to build around it, so it might not be doable. You're also going to be working with typically 2 color decks. Okay, so again, if you're using, let's say, Gruul or whatever, like, or Azorius, you're going to be going blue-white. All right, but don't be afraid if you have to splash the 3rd color. It kind of sucks because it's really hard to get that mana consistency when you're doing with 3 colors rather than 2. But if you've got like no removal, okay, this happened to me one time where I had a blue-white deck, actually blue-white deck, and I had no removal. All my removal was in black, and so I had to splash black as well, because otherwise, like, you're just dead. You just can't do anything. So don't be afraid to splash a 3rd color if necessary, but try not to. All right. Now, when it comes to going to pre-release, there's a tip that I have is come prepared. Okay. Now, typically, what you should bring to pre-release is a backpack with a snack, because pre-release can last for quite some time, or money to buy a snack depending on LGS or where it's being held, a water bottle. Dice and counters are important. I typically like to bring a notepad with several pencils or pens to keep track of life totals. You want to keep track of your life total, and you also want to keep track of your opponent's life total as well, right? And basically that way you can have consistency, and you're not just relying on someone else. Typically, you don't want to use a life spin down counter, even though you probably will get one in your box, because in that setting there's just so many people around, and it's just easy for someone to bump your table and your dice goes flying, or you hit it with your hand or something like that, and then you just don't remember like what it was at, or there could be a dispute there. It's just easier if you use a pen and notepad. All right, just one of those small ones you can get at any loony store, or typically, like, I get them in the mail or whatever. Like, those are all fine. Bring an extra deck box, right, to hold your cards in. Typically it comes with a box, but those boxes are always terrible. So, bring a deck box. One thing that I really like to bring to pre-release is a set of pre-sleeved basic lands. Now, everyone's going to say, yeah, I know, like the LGS is going to provide you with basic lands. And yeah, okay, they will. But sleeving those lands is going to take a long time, right? Not a long time, but a few minutes. And you only have a limited amount of time to put a deck together. So if you come with, say, 16 to 20 pre-sleeved lands of each color, right, that's going to mean that you have like 80 sleeved lands, right, that you're bringing with you. Well, when it comes time to assemble your deck, you don't have to sleeve your lands, right? And your lands are 40% of your deck, so it means that you don't have to like spend 40, like your sleeving time will be 40% less. Just remember that your sleeves, the sleeves you plan on putting your actual deck in, have to match the sleeves of your land, obviously. Otherwise, it's marking, right? So, but that's a tip that I found, and it really helped because you can spend that few extra minutes looking at your deck, making kind of smoothing things out, and then at the end it's just bang, 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 just count out these lands, and there you go. All right, my last tip is when we're playing, don't be afraid to call a judge, right? People are always going to think that you're being rude. What is not your opponent, you will think you're being rude by calling a judge on your opponent, right? Or even on yourself. But judges want things to go smoothly, right? And you want things to go smoothly. So if you're like, I'm not sure if that actually works that way, call a judge. And if your opponent's like, what, you don't believe me? Be like, no, I believe you, but I still want to call a judge just to be sure, right? Like if you're not sure about anything, call a judge, right? Like, no one should ever get mad at you. Now, if you're calling a judge every turn and you don't know how to play the game or something, then okay. But, for the most part, if you're not sure about something or you have a question, don't be afraid to call a judge. I can give you two examples. One where I was at a pre-release, it was Shadows over Innistrad pre-release, and my opponent had like full black-red madness vampires, right? And I didn't call a judge, but it's like in hindsight, it looked extremely suspicious that this person had like a full-on deck. Like they had like play sets of creatures. Right? That just doesn't happen in sealed. Like that was really suspicious. So in hindsight, I should have called a judge, and I kind of regret that I didn't. The other thing is, another example is like there was one, I think it was in Amonkhet or something like that, where someone had in pre-release had 4 glory bringers, and they insisted that they actually all opened them up in their packs. Like, come on, you opened up 4 glory bringers in 6 packs? Like that almost never, that's not going to happen. But like technically it's possible, but the odds of it are extremely rare. So at a minimum, it'll get that judge's like eye on them and maybe put them into the system or something like that. But it's not even just about them like finding cheaters, right? It's about you just being comfortable playing the game. So like for instance, like if you think like you're not sure if a Death Toucher can kill an indestructible creature, right? Like call a judge. They should know that. All right. So if your opponent insists that that can happen, you'd be surprised how many times like people make mistakes in different calls. So anyways, those are my 5 tips. Now following this, what I have is a sample of me opening up 6 pre-release packs and opening, and well, they're simulated. They're actually from the Guilds of Ravnica set, because I don't have the new Ravnica pre-release pack because it's not out yet. But what I'm doing is I'm going to open up those 6 packs. We're going to look through the cards, and I'm going to show you my rationale for building the decks that I built, right? And we'll go through that. It'll take a little bit of time, but I think it's worth watching. Anyways, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you have any advice you'd like to give to other people at pre-release, put it in the comments below. And remember, there's a good way to support the channel for free is to like and subscribe. Share the video if you like. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Alright, so I'm starting here with 6 booster packs of Ravnica, Guilds of Ravnica. And this is going to be a little bit different because we're not going to be doing Guilds of Ravnica, obviously, at the pre-release. But that's obviously I don't have the pre-release card, so sorry, that'll have to do. Alright, so we're going to start by opening them up. So the first thing you're going to do is open up all your cards, and it's better if you sort them by color. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to move these off screen. Alright, so I got my first pack open here, and I'm going to sort them by color. Now, I don't really even bother reading them just yet. I just want to get an idea of like what I have. Okay, so what I usually do is I'll put like my multicolored in a separate pile, and all I'm doing, and well, I mean a separate pile from the artifacts, okay, because artifacts can pretty much go into any deck, so that pretty much means like you can go like put them separately. Now this one isn't specific to or can't go in any deck, so I would put this in multicolor. All right, let's see, it's got Dead Weight, Gatekeeper Gargoyle, okay, Hellkite Whelp. All right, that's a red. All right, and then let's see, we got Discovery Dispersal, multicolored, another Response Resurgence. Okay, And is it Guildgate? Now this doesn't seem like a really great card, but it actually might be, especially if you choose Is It Colors. Like it just helps with your color fixing quite a bit. But you know, of course, I'd rather get a Planeswalker or something like that. But all right, okay. So, but my rare though was this Response Resurgence, and I'll look at that later. Okay, so Wojciech Bodyguard, Take Heart. Okay, Dimir Informant. Rumble Boar, Barrier of Bones, Generous Stray, Bartizan Bats, okay, Devkaran Dissident, Watcher in the Mist, so another Selesnya Locket, okay, then we got Molder Hulk, okay, Goblin Banneret, Thought Eraser, that's actually a pretty decent card, okay, Drowned Secrets. Drowned Secrets is a great card, but probably not usable in. It's probably not going to be usable unless we just happen to get more of those, right? Going a mill strategy, milling 2 cards at a time, you have to go mono blue pretty much to play it. Like it's just too hard, so it's probably not something that's reasonable. All right, so let's keep going. Oh, Hunted Witness is actually a very good card. Unexplained Disappearance. Child of Night, Urban Utopia, Artful Takedown, Samala Woodshaper, Devious Cover-Up, Rhizome Lurcher, Sky Knight, Legionnaire, Darkblade Agent. That is actually another really, really good card, especially for a common. Right? Okay. Oh, Crackling Drake. Okay, Crackling Drake is pretty sweet as well. Right, so, but unfortunately it has a very specific build to it. So you got to be careful on like if you're going to build with that. Okay, Conclave Guildmage, Rampaging Monument, okay, Bounty of Might. Wow, okay, 6 mana, target 3 different targets get +3/+3 to end of turn, and it's an instant. Alright, Golgari, and then 2 Golgari Guildgates. Okay, oh, that's interesting. Look, we've got two different Golgari Guildgates. Right, so yeah, different artwork, even though they're the same card. Okay, okay, that's 3 decks or 3 packs opened already. We're gonna get this 3rd one going. Okay, Maximize Velocity. That is actually a pretty decent card. Healer's Hawk is very strong. Okay, Barrier of Bones. Rocky Dissident, Mephitic Vapors, Luminous Bonds is really good removal. Verdani's Shieldmate is actually pretty strong too, right? A 2/2 with Vigilance. Piston Fist Cyclops fits actually the Is It build pretty nicely. Pitiless Gorgon, sure, okay. Hammer Dropper could be okay. Goblin Crater Maker, okay. Swath Cutter Giant, Plague Crafter, Knights of Autumn. Man, there's a lot of good Selesnya cards. Dimir Guildgate and Bird Token. Alright, so let's see what else we got here. Okay, so cracking. This is pack number 5. Dimir Informant, Rubble Belt Boar, Crushing Canopy, Severed Strands, Fresh Face Recruit, Mephitic Vapors, Blade Instructor with Mentor, Command the Storms, Capture Sphere, Golgari Locket. Okay, actually it's not an artifact. Conclave Cavalier, World Soul Colossus, another Plague Crafter, Experimental Frenzy. This is actually a pretty decent card, but again, it's a very specific build, and I'm not sure if you could build this in Limited. Yeah, like this is a really tough card to build around in Limited. A Selesnya Guildgate, okay, and an Elf Knight token. Alright, last one. Alright, so let's see what we got here. Okay, we got Sworn Companions, Maximize Altitude, Crawl Foragers, Burglar Rat, Pitiless Gorgon, another Fresh Face Recruit, Artful Takedown, Samala Woodshaper, okay, Devious Cover-Up, Rhizome Lurcher, Night Veil Predator. That is actually a very strong card as well. Flying Death Touch Hexproof 3/3. So right now I'm thinking probably like what I've seen is that Selesnya or Dimir So we're probably going to go blue black or white green. Probably. We'll just have to see what's in there. I don't think like the Is-It stuff is just, I don't think we're strong enough to go with Is-It stuff. All right, so circuitous roots. Oh, risk factor. That is a great pull, right? A risk factor is just so good. But I don't think that we'll be able to play it like, unless we splash red. We'll have to see. But it is a really, really strong pull. All right, Selesnya Guildgate again. Okay. Now here's the thing, is that when you're building a deck, right, like you might get a card like Risk Factor. Okay, so one like this. And that's very strong, all right? So target opponent may have Risk Factor, deal 4 damage to them. If that player doesn't, then you draw 3 cards. And especially for like red decks, that just allows them to refill their hand. Because most of the time when this comes out, your opponent can't take 4 damage, or they really don't want to, right? And then you can jumpstart it again, so you can do it again, right? So this card is actually really, really brutal. It's hard on your opponent. But the thing is, like, I think red right now just doesn't have that much support. So we'll have to see. I have to take a better, closer look at it and see what we got there. But maybe. It's possible we could do some Boros thing with Fresh Face Recruit. We're going to have to take a look at our colors and just see what jumps out, right? The blue is okay. Like, they're all actually okay. Green was kind of underwhelming. But let's take a look color by color. All right, so let's take a look over at the red cards. Okay, so we got, as I said, Experimental Frenzy, which is pretty much like a build around card, but we don't have the pieces to build around it. That's more of a constructed type format deck card. We got Hellkite Whelp and Risk Factor, both great cards. Right, we'd like to be able to play these, but the rest of the cards are kind of underwhelming. All right, so we got Maximize Velocity, which is pretty good. 1 mana, +1/+1, and gains haste, and has Jumpstart. Anything with Jumpstart in this format is pretty good. So, like, anything with recursions, or where you can use the card again, is pretty good. Okay, so Command the Storm is some removal, right? Hellkite Whelp is kind of like a little bit between evasion and removal, because it can, when it attacks, it deals 1 damage to target creature defending player control. So anything that's like a 2/1 or 3/1 or something like that, you can get rid of that using Hellkite Whelp, right? So it's a little bit of removal. Now the rest of them are just okay. So you got a 3 mana 3/2, okay. A 3 mana 3/3 with Mentor. That's actually probably one of the better ones, but he can't attack or block alone. Okay, you got Goblin Banneret, which is okay, but it's a 1/1, and it requires you to constantly sink mana into it in order to use its Mentor ability. So, like, let's say you get this out on turn 1. You got a 1/1 for 1, and then you got to get another creature out so you can Mentor it, and then on turn 3, when you're hopefully attacking with both, then you can pump mana into Goblin Banner to give it +2/+0, and hopefully it doesn't just get chump blocked by like a token or something like that. So, I mean, it's not the worst card. It's okay, but it's, you know, it's not like, wow, I gotta play that. So that's like kind of like on the aggro type scale, so like an A on the bread. I'd say some of these are like almost unplayable. Like, well, they're all playable, but like, you know, like, they're just not really great cards. I'd say that the only ones that really stand out is Goblin Banneret, Wojciech Bodyguard because he has Mentor, right? And like, here it says he cannot attack or block alone, but because he's got Mentor, he probably wants to block or attack with someone anyways. Let's see, Crater Maker. So Crater Maker is a 2/2 for 2, which is okay with an extra ability. So eventually you can just block sack with him when you don't need him. So I mean, that's okay. And then I got a pair of Rubble Belt Boars, and the Rubble Belt Boars enter the battlefield. Target creature gets +2/+0. It's a 4 mana 3/3. So I don't know. It's just okay. I mean, it's not the worst, but I don't know. It's not anything amazing. So I would put them maybe in the dirt pile, something I generally don't want to play. Now this means that we're pretty sparse when it comes to red. Now we still have to look at like possibly Boros decks, or maybe an Is-It Guild deck, you know, something like that. Maybe we can flesh out some creatures or something like that. But what I'd say is I would look at this and I'd be like, okay, in red I've got essentially 3 instants and sorceries, right, and 4 creatures, right? It's kind of underwhelming, so I got to have something better to be able to like kind of help this out here. All right, so let's take a look at some of the other colors. Let's go, actually, what we should do is let's go and look at the multicolors and see what we can find with multicolor red and see if there's anything that can help us out to see if we should be playing this red at all. All right, so I'm going to take away these and just kind of set them aside right now. And let's go take a look over at multicolor red. So we're going to be looking at either Is It colors or Boros colors and see what we can find. Alright, so we are back, and okay, so in Is It colors, I've got pretty much two things. Crackling Drake, which is a great card, and Piston Fist Cyclops. The thing with Crackling Drake is its power is equal to the total number of instants and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. Right, so when it enters the battlefield, it replaces itself. So this is actually an amazing card. But you have to be playing a ton of instants and sorceries for this to be any good. Right, and in sealed, I don't know, like, do we want to take that chance? Do we have so many instants and sorceries? I really don't think so. So, like, again, this is more like, it's really tempting to play this, you know, especially in hindsight, because I know that this is a like, this belongs in like a tier 1 format, a tier 1 deck, but it's just something that's just almost unplayable, like in sealed, because I don't have the right cards to kind of fill out the deck that I need. So I would say that probably it's a flyer. I'll keep it, but the thing is, if I go with Is It, those are the only two Is It cards I have, right? Along with a Guild Gate, you know. And so I got Piston Fist Cyclops. And as long as you cast an instance or sorcery spell, then you could attack with it as though it didn't have Defender, right? So we'd be super light on creatures, and we'd have to go like full on control if we went Is It colors. So I would say Is It is probably not something we can look at, even though it's unfortunate. You know, you got to kind of like hold yourself back and say, like, look, can we realistically actually play this color? Even if it might be your favorite color, or you might have some great cards, I don't think you can really fill this out. So I'm gonna have to say no to Is It. Okay, Boros on the other hand. Okay, so Boros, we got, okay, Garrison Sergeant, 5 mana, 3/3, has double strike. So anything with first strike is amazing. Double strike is actually really good. So when this thing gets through, it hits for 6, right? So that's actually, you know, pretty amazing. Let's see, we got Response, where it deals 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature, so that's good removal. Or Resurgence, creatures you control gain first strike and vigilance until end of turn. After this main phase, there's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. So this Resurgence could be like a game winner, right? Like, if your opponent taps down all of his creatures and just like doesn't kill you, you could actually surprise your opponent by getting an additional combat phase and getting like all the ton of first strikers and stuff like that. So this is a very strong card. We got 2 Fresh Face Recruits, which are pretty good. All right. Swath Cutter Giant, which is like an amazing card. It's like 6 mana, 5/5 with Vigilance. So anything with Vigilance is awesome too. Whenever Swath Cutter Giant attacks, it deals 1 damage to each creature defending player controls. Right, so similar to our Hellkite Whelp. Okay, Hammer Dropper it's a Mentor 5/2, all right, for 4. So that's again pretty good. Now I put this card in here, Verdani Shieldmate, because technically it's off color, but it's 2 mana 2/2 with Vigilance, and we can get it if we have white. It's a little bit risky to put in because but not really any more than, like, say, Goblin Crater Maker, because what if we only have white mana and we don't have red? Well, then we're kind of screwed. But here we have to worry about what if we have red mana but no white, right? So Verdani Shieldmate, it's a little bit of a risk, but we could technically play it here. Okay, and Skylight Legionnaire has Evasion. It's a 3 mana 2/2 with Flying and Haste. That's actually a pretty sweet card as well. So, like, anything with flying. Now, my only problem is if I go with Boros, right, I have very little removal, all right? And what we're trying to look for, remember, is about 16 to 17 creatures, maybe 7, you know, the rest in sorceries and instants, and then the rest in, like, lands. Okay, so, like, what do we have here? We got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 creatures. So we're really creature light. Now if I throw in the Rubble Belt boars in there, which I said were just okay, you know, then I can get to up to, what is that? I forget what it was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and even if I put this guy in there, which is just a kind of a 3-2 generic, okay, that's still kind of light on creatures, especially for red, because red is really trying to be super, super aggressive. So, like, I don't know what else we'd put in there then. Like, you know, I guess we could look over at white and see what we have. So it's possible, like, I don't really like these here. Okay, so let's take these out and let's go look at white and see what we could do with B.R.E.A.D. So let's continue along this and see what we can find. All right, so we're looking at white, and you can see what I've done here is I've actually just rearranged the cards in order of their converted mana cost. So here I've got all my sorceries, and in instance, there's not many, but then here I've got all my 1 and 2 drops. Actually, I accidentally put a 3 drop here. So, okay, here I've got my 3 drops, okay, 3 and 4 drops, and this is like 5+, right? So in limited or in sealed, typically you want most of your creatures to be in here, right? Because these creatures are fine. These are like 2/2s, and you know, and like most of them are 2/2s with vigilance and stuff like that. First strike is actually really nice, but the problem is that when a push comes to shove, at like towards the end, like in the mid game, these creatures will not be that good anymore. Right, so like you need more in this area here to kind of finish out the game. Otherwise, you're going to be really strong, but you just won't be able to finish. Right? I know that's going to become a meme somehow. All right, so let's see what we got. Sunhome Stalwart, First Strike, Mentor. That's pretty good. Now we could go with a very strong go wide strategy. It's just going to be tough to try and grab so many creatures here. This could actually be okay. Sworn Companions is essentially a creature. Create 2 white, 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. Okay, so that's actually okay. Blade Instructor, 3 mana with 3/1 with Mentor. All right. Luminous Bonds. Now, here's where things kind of get interesting. So Luminous Bonds is removal, and that's something that we're kind of lacking a lot of here. So Luminous Bonds is great. Healer's Hawk is great. Anything with flying. Hunted Witness is good because it has lifelink, but when it dies, it creates a, well, it doesn't have lifelink at first, but when it dies, it gets what, like, it creates another creature with lifelink. Take Heart, okay, so this is, again, trying to go with a go-wide strategy. 10th District Guard. When 10th District Guard enters the battlefield, target creature gets +0/+1 till end of turn. It's a 2/2 for 2. It's alright. And Sworn Companions, again, so more creatures. Now here's the thing, that we have very little removal, and what we're trying to do then with this is go with a whole ton of really, really cheap creatures and then try and mentor them, right, to make them bigger. My only concern with a deck like this is like these only represent like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't think they even all have Mentor. Right, so I'd say like only like 5 real mentors in here. That's a really tough one, because what if you don't get these guys, or what if your opponent removes them? Then you're just stuck with all these like little 1/1s and 2/2s that are going to be really hard to get rid of, right? Or really hard to really make anything happen. And yeah, like if we can get out fast, this is going to be really strong. But if your opponent has any sort of removal, like things could get really bad really fast for you. So I don't know. This is just okay. I'm not totally feeling this. So let's go take a look at something else. Like, I mean, this is something that's possible, but let's go take a look at Selesnya and see what we got in green and in Selesnya colors, and maybe we can combine some of these decent white cards with green cards and make a Selesnya deck. All right, so let's say we're building a Selesnya. We have let's see, Circuitous Root. Now this is actually pretty decent, because for 4 mana you can search for 2 basic land cards and or gate cards, and we just happen to have 2 Selesnya Guild Gates. So using this 1 card, we can thin our deck, but also get 2 Guild Gates, and you put them into the battlefield tapped, right? So they come right to the battlefield. This is actually like an awesome card, you know. So we could do that, something like that. They have the Crawl of Foragers. Enters the battlefield, gain 1 life for each creature card in your graveyard. Just a just okay, but it is a 4/4 for 5. I mean, it's all right. Crushing Canopy, destroy target creature with flying, destroy target enchantment. I don't know, like, if your opponent's not playing any flyers, this is going to be like a really feel bad card, right? So I would say probably not. Devkaran Dissident. Okay, so it comes out as a 2/2, but you can pay 5 mana and it becomes a 4/4 till end of turn. Like, I mean, a 2 for 2 is fine, and then later on you can pump it. You know, I would take it maybe possibly just on the A level of B.R.E.A.D, right? You know, maybe playable. Urban Utopia. Enchant land becomes you replace itself, so you draw a card and it helps you to fix your mana. So that is very strong. Another one of these guys. Generous Stray, enters the battlefield, draw a card. So I mean, a 3 mana 1/2 allows you to draw a card, is pretty decent. And another Urban Utopia allows you to draw another card. So we got some good mana fixing card draw and stuff like that, but not these guys. I'm not really feeling these ones. So I'm going to put them kind of over here, right, in the generally not playable. Okay, let's go see what Selesnya cards we have. Alright, so we're looking at the Selesnya cards now. So what we did is you may have noticed first of all that I changed the playmat is because I had to move to a different place. But anyways, just so that doesn't bug you too much. So we are looking at, we just looked at green, now we're looking at Selesnya as a possible color. So one thing that we have working for us is we have 2 Guild Gates. Right, now Guild Gates aren't like fast lands or pain lands or anything like that, but they will help us to fix our mana, and they are pretty good in sealed, right? So I don't mind playing them, especially, you know, like, we don't necessarily have to have fast mana. It's always nice, but I mean, it is what it is. I'll take it if I can get it. Now, one thing I was going through the cards and I noticed was that I had accidentally misplaced this Bounty of Might, which is an incredible rare. All right, so it's 6 mana, meaning that by the time we play this, we are going to be closing out the game, like close to the end of the game, right? And so I'll kind of push it up here. Let's see. All right, so see if you can see that. Okay, so basically it says 3 different target creatures can get +3/+3 till end of turn, but they don't have to be different creatures. And so if we're playing Selesnya, we're probably playing a tokens type deck, and by the time we finish out the game, we can just choose one of our tokens, and if we can get even 1 token through, we can cast this as instant speed and give them +9/+9, right, for 6 mana. So, like, let's say it's a 2/2, and our opponent's at 10 life or 11 life, we swing with everything, and at the last second, we just pump one of our creatures, and we can actually end up winning the game with that. So that's actually a pretty huge card, right? All right, so let's keep going here. Now, the lighting in this area sucks, but unfortunately, that's all I got, so you guys will have to deal with it. Okay, now with Selesnya, we got some actually really decent cards. Okay, so we got Verdani Shieldmate, and again, I'll just zoom this in a little bit here. Okay, so it's a 2/2 with Vigilance, right? So that's pretty good. Okay, now here we got Sumala Woodshaper. Right, so Sumala Woodshaper enters the battlefield. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or enchantment card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest of them on the bottom of your library. Okay, so basically, she's a 4 mana 2/1 elf druid that replaces herself. All right, so you're going to have hopefully a lot of creatures in here. We can get a creature or an enchantment in there, and yeah, and then we can go with that. And we actually have 2 of them, right? So I'm going to put them over here. Okay, so I'll just put them over here because I want to see what the curve is like. All right, now we also have 2 Selesnya Lockets. Basically, they are just for ramping mana, but also late game you can pay 4 and sacrifice it and draw 2 cards. So late game, that could actually be, you know, a huge card digging tool for us. Okay, then let's see, what else do we have here? Conclave Guildmage, another decent card. So it's a 2 mana 2/2, but you can give your creatures trample till end of turn, and for 6 mana you can create a 2/2 green white elf creature token with vigilance. So, you know, it's okay. It's a 2/2 for 2, but it can give your creatures trample, and then also late game you can just start generating more tokens with this. So it's okay. I mean, it's a mana sink. Another great one we have is Knight of Autumn. Now, when Knight of Autumn enters the battlefield, you can choose one. So you can put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. You can destroy a target artifact or enchantment or gain 4 life. Right? Most of the time, you're probably going to just put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, so it turns into a 4/3. But you know, if there's a pesky artifact or enchantment your opponent has, you can also use that to destroy it. That's a great card, and I wish I had more. Let's see, we got this one, World Soul Colossus, and it can be convoked. So when it enters the battlefield with X, it gets X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of extra mana that you paid to convoke it, right? So like, well, no, like you can just use regular mana. So let's say, for instance, you had like, I don't know, like 6 creatures out, right? And you had 3 extra mana or something like that. So like you could pay the 3 with this and then convoke all 6 creatures, and this could come out as like a 7/7. Right, so that's actually a pretty decent card. We also have Conclave Cavalier. It's a 4/4 for 4 with Vigilance. Now, this 2 white, 2 green might be difficult to pay, and that's why these Selesnya Guild Gates would actually have to come in. Like they're so important, right? So, but 4/4 with Vigilance, and when it dies, create 2/2 green and white elf knights with tokens with Vigilance. It basically, when it dies, it just replaces itself with 2 more versions. Like it basically cuts itself in half. I think it's kind of cool because it's a centaur, so it's like half horse, half knight. So it kind of like, I like to think that it got killed, got chopped in half. One half became the horse, the other half became the knight, or the human. It's kind of grisly if you think about it, but still kind of interesting. Okay, now after that we have, go back to our white cards. We've got 2 3-mana cards, which is Sworn Companions, and it creates 2 1/1 white soldiers with lifelink, right? So that's, I'm putting it into creatures because essentially that's creature creation, right? We have Luminous Bonds for removal, right? We also have an instant, Take Heart, which might be able to kind of save us. Now, Take Heart, trying to get out of the reflection there, is a target creature gets +2/+2 till end of turn, and you gain 1 life for each attacking creature you control. So later on, like, you know, if we're flooding the board, we could attack with a ton of creatures and potentially get some good life back and keep us in the game. This one's a little bit iffy, but you can still cast it. This Fresh-Faced Recruit has first strike as long as it's your turn, so a 2/1 for 2 with first strike is actually decent, and remember, we have 2 of them. Now, ideally, it's not great, but you know, in sealed, you kind of have to take what you can get. Okay, so we have Sunhome Stalwart, which is another mentor creature. Healer's Hawk, which is a flyer, which is good. 10th Street Guardian enters the battlefield. It gives a creature a +0/+1. That's just meh. But it is a 2/2 for 2, and it does have an ability, so you know it's not bad. Hunted Witness is great. Replaces itself. Blade Instructor is pretty decent as well. A 3/1 with Mentor. Right, and then this, we can still cast the response side of Response and Resurgence. So Response deals 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature for 2 white. So, you know, this is actually something, like, we can't cast the Resurgence side, but it's still something to consider, you know, that it could be some form of removal as well. All right, now, if I'm going through the rest, I don't think I have any other cards that I could play that are in those colors, except for my artifacts. So here's my 2 artifacts. Okay, so I've got Gatekeeper Gargoyle, which gets a +1/+1 counter on it for each gate you control. But I only have 2 gates, and there's not a good chance that I'll actually get those 2 gates out. So I'm probably not going to play this Gargoyle. Now, if I was playing all gates, then that would be great. Like, but I just don't have them, right? So that's not really a great one. This one, though, Rampaging Monument. Okay, a 4-mana a creature with Trample enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. So it's a 4-mana 3/3 with Trample, which is pretty decent. But whenever you cast a multicolor spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So if you look, though, like how many of our spells are multicolor, right? Like we actually got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 potentially. So potentially 10 multicolored spells that we could cast. So this is one that we would actually consider as well. Okay, so let's take a look. Like, do we have enough? It looks pretty strong, right? That's what I'm going to say is it looks pretty strong, but do we actually have enough to make this happen, right? So I got this generous stray, so it's good card draw there as well, right? So a lot of these things replace themselves. Okay, so do we have enough? Let's take a look. So I need 7, let's say 16 or 17 creatures. So do I have that? All right. Well, let's see. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, this should go over here. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. These guys should be over here. I just kind of messed it. Anyways, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I got potentially 18 creatures there, right? And that's okay if I want to play it with maybe 24 lands, and see where we go from there. So I mean that's okay. Or I could take out some of the less good ones. Like this 10th District Guard is not really that great. It's a 2/2 for 2 with an ability, but it doesn't really jump out at me as being like an amazing card. So maybe you take this down, and then we end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 creatures, right? So that would mean that if we're playing a standard rule of 16 lands, 17 creatures, that would bring us up to 16 plus 17 is 33, so we would have room for 7 more cards. Now, the 7 cards that we choose, okay, the guild gates don't count because they're going to be land. Could be our Selesnya lockets. All right, so could be Selesnya lockets, but there are some here that we have to take. All right, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards here, and 2 Selesnya lockets. All right, so we could take, like, of these 9 cards, we have to choose 7. So what would I choose? All right, so let's take a look. First of all, Luminous Bonds is a must. It's removal. You got to have it. All right, Bounty of Might could be a finisher. Right, so we got to have that. Urban Utopia, okay, I like this, okay, mainly because we're playing so many of these like little like 2/2s and stuff that we got to flood the board. This ramps our mana, okay, well it doesn't ramp, it adds 1 mana of any color, so it helps us to fix our mana, which would help us to maybe cast our Fresh Face Recruit. But the important thing is it's a 2 mana card that gives us this fixing but allows us to draw a card, right? So I think that's important, and we've got 2 of those. Right, so there's 4. Now, I can choose 3 more of these cards, which would help. So I got this. Response deals 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. That's removal. Okay, remember B.R.E.A.D. So we have to take removal, right? We just have to. Even if you don't like it, well, even if there's something better, like you don't have removal, you're dead. Okay, so Circuitous Route. Okay, so how many do I have? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can take 2 more things out of these, unless I remove a creature, right? Now, are there creatures that I'd be willing to get rid of? Okay, I really don't think so. Okay, so I can only really take 2 more things. Take Heart is okay, and it might keep me in the game, but I think that it's not going to be the game winner for me. So maybe, I don't know, it's a cool combat trick. But I don't know, we'll have to see. So Circuitous Route will help me to thin my library, but also help me get my lands online. I really like that card. Okay, and then I can choose basically 1 more, or I can choose 2 more. I think a Selesnya Locket is actually a decent choice to help me ramp my mana a little bit. And then let's see what we got. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, so there's my 24 lands. Now I don't have anything that's huge really, and I got a lot of ramp, so I could potentially put an extra Selesnya Locket in and go to 23 lands. All right, so then I've got 2 guild gates, so I need 21 other lands, which are going to be split between forest and plains. So how do you know what the split should be? Well, what I always do is I just count the mana symbols. All right, so let's see how many mana symbols we have that are white versus how many are green. All right, so let's take a look. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm counting green. 6, 7. No, this one, yeah, sure. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I got 14 green. Let's go to white. Okay, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So 19 white. No, I forgot how many green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 14 to 19. So it means I need more white than green. All right, so basically 14 to 19, we can maybe round it and say 15 and 25, 15 and 20. So basically 15 out of 35 total is about what, 3/7? So 3 out of 7 lands. So I'm going to need probably 10. I'm just doing some mental math. Probably about 10 forests and probably about 13. Well, 23. So 10 forests and 11 plains. So typically, like you want to use that, but you kind of favor the smaller color a little bit more. And these guild gates will help because they count for both, right? So, so yeah, I'd go 10 forests, 11 plains, and the 2 guild gates, and that should be enough to get me my mana online. And then keep in mind, I also have the Selesnya lockets, which can help me to get my mana online. I've got Urban Utopia, which can help me get my mana online. And then after that, I've got like card draw to help me find stuff too. I've got like Generous Stray, I got Simala Woodshaper, which can help me to find my Urban Utopias and stuff like that as well, or other creatures. My only concern with this deck is that it doesn't have a ton of removal. Now we have a lot of expendable things, which is good, and we have a lot of things with First Strike and Vigilance, which is also very strong as well. So I think this is actually a decent deck, and I'm tempted to run with it. But still, we should look at some of the other decks as well. And what I'm going to look at is I'm going to move next to Dimir. All right, so when I'm looking at Dimir, well, actually, I'm going to be looking at Golgari and Dimir kind of at the same time. I need to check out the black cards, right, and see what we've got, what's okay and what's not okay, right? So we've got Moodmark Painter, 4 mana, 2/3 with Undergrowth. And when it enters the battlefield, target creature gains menace and gets +X/+0, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. That, unless we have a way to fill our graveyard, is not really amazing, right? So, I mean, like it's. Yeah, I would say it's not that great of an ability. Dead Weight is removal, so that is like awesome. Barrier of Bones, a 1 mana 0/3, enters the battlefield, allows you to surveil. So it gives you an early game blocker, so that's actually okay. Early game blocker, and you can surveil to kind of dig in your library a little bit more. It's not as good as card draw, but it's still okay. Bartizan Bats is okay, is a 4 mana 3/1 with flying. So it has evasion. So remember with B.R.E.A.D, E is, this would be an E card. Okay, Child of Night is a 2 mana 2/1 with lifelink. Again, it's okay. It's this would just be like on the A side, so an aggro creature that would be pretty good to have. I mean, you get it down, you can maybe trade with an opponent and get you 2 life. That's all you're going to be looking for. Okay, so we got another Barrier of Bones, potentially. A Mephitic Vapors. All creatures get -1/-1 till end of turn. Right, and Surveil 2, so that could actually be pretty decent. That is a removal piece, so we kind of need that. We have got another Mephitic Vapors, actually, so we have some consistency here. So another a bit of removal. We've got 2 Plague Crafters. Okay, when it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. Each player who can't discards a card. This is actually very, very strong because it's a 3 mana 3/2, but it forces your opponent like to sacrifice their cards. So especially because like in black, we might be working in a slower deck, and like so we would actually potentially like just have nothing out on board. Our opponent might have a good creature out on board, like a good early game creature. We put this out, and then they have to sack it. Right, so we got 2 of them too. So that's a creature and removal. That's pretty good. Okay, now Severed Strands. Okay, you have to sacrifice a creature. You gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. Destroy target creature and opponent controls. So again, removal. Right, so we got so much removal in black. We might like I liked this Selesnya deck we built, but we got so much removal in black that it might be worth it to take it. And then B.R.E.A.D is a 1/1 for 2 mana. When enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. Right, so I mean it's okay. It'd be better if it had Death Touch or something like that, but you know that might be asking a lot for a common. All right, so out of the black cards, we only really have this Moonmark Painter, which is kind of underwhelming, but we do actually have a decent amount of other cards. Let's split these up into creatures versus removal, other things. Like, so we got some creatures, okay, like this. Okay, so we've got 7 creatures and 4 other cards. So let's go take a look at Dimir and see what we can do with that. Like, do we have anything in blue that can help us out? And then we'll look at the Dimir cards specifically. All right, so in blue, we've got some interesting cards. We have Devious Cover-Up, basically as a hard counter. So counter a spell, you exile it, and then you can put some cards from your graveyard back into your library. So I mean, it's okay. I mean, I'll take a counter almost any time. Maximize Altitude, creature gets +1/+1, gains flying till end of turn. That's not going to win you the game, but it does have Jumpstart, so you can cast it again. I'm going to put this over here, mainly as a card that's just okay, maybe not one that I would consider, unless I had to, like I had room for it. Capture Sphere is removal. Okay, so you tap enchanted creature and it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step, so you would pretty much have to take that. Dimir Informant, it's a 1/4 for 3. When it enters the battlefield, you surveil 2. Unless you specifically have a surveil deck, like this maybe not be that good. Like, it's a good blocker, but for 3 mana, like, all you get is a blocker out of it. So I'm going to put it over here. We happen to have another Devious Cover-Up, so not bad. Unexplained Disappearance, so return target creature to its owner's hand, surveil 1. That could protect your own creatures. Like, if you were to combine that with a Plague Crafter, for instance, right? Like, you could cast your Plague Crafter, your opponent could try and destroy it, or they play another good creature, you return it to your hand and then play it again and kill your opponent's creatures, right? So I mean, there's ways you could do that. So that might actually work. Drowned Secrets. Now, Drowned Secrets is an awesome card. I love Mill, but it's a kind of a build around card, right? You have to have like 4 of these, and you have to have like a whole crap ton of removal to play this, and it has to be mostly blue deck. So I would say, unfortunately, that might go to my trade binder, but it's not going to into the deck. Okay, so Watcher in the Mist is a 5 mana 3/4 with flying, so it has evasion, and when it enters the battlefield, you surveil 2. So I mean, that's okay. A Dimir Informant, I already said that this is just okay. A Muse Drake, so it's a 4 mana 1/3 with flying, and enters the battlefield, you draw a card. So okay, sure, flyers are always good. And Leapfrog has flying as long as you've cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, so a 3/1, right? It's okay, but we don't have, well, I guess we have some instants, but not, this is more of a Dimir card where you're like attacking all the time, not just like killing it. Like our Mephitic Vapors would kill that. Like, there's not a lot that we would be able to cast that would allow us to do this. All right, so taking a look at the Dimir cards, we've got a couple of good ones actually. You got Discovery Dispersal, so surveil 2, then draw a card. Now, there is actually one I should go over first here, and that is Darkblade Agent. So Darkblade Agent is a 2/3 for 3, but as long as you surveil, and this creature has Death Touch and can draw you a card when it does combat damage to a player. We've got a ton of removal here, so this will actually be a really sweet card to play. So I will put that, we definitely want that. Now, if we have a Darkblade Agent, then we definitely want Discovery and Dispersal, right? So you can return a non-land permanent they control at the highest converted mana cost to their, so you can, Dispersal might be able to get rid of a card that might be blocking our Darkblade Agent, but more so we want this Discovery so that we can surveil. Right, so put that there. We got Dimir Guildgates. A Nightvale Predator is a 3/3 flying Death Touch with Hexproof. That again is pretty sweet. Okay, we got Artful Takedown. So choose one or both. Tap target creature, or target creature gets -2/-4. So that's removal. Okay, we definitely want that. A second Artful Takedown. Okay, and Thought Eraser. Now, target opponent reveals their hand, you choose a non-land card from it, and the player discards the card. Okay, so that's what we got for for Demir. Now, here's the thing. It looks pretty good, but do we have enough, right? Do we have enough creatures? So we've got just a ton of of stuff to that we could use to disrupt our opponent, but do we have enough to actually win the game? So what we need to do is look at creatures. Okay, so these are all basically removal type cards. That's just a ton right here. I'm going to move them off screen. Okay, so what do we have? We're pretty creature light. All right, so the question is, do we have enough creatures? So what do we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 creatures is pretty light, right? Like, I'm just afraid like we could end up just getting blown away, right? So let's take a look at some of our less good creatures. So you got Mood Mark Painter. Okay, so when it enters the battlefield, target creature gains menace and gets +X+O until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. I mean, it's not the worst, but a 4-mana 2/3 is not really great either. We got, let's see, so this one might actually be a good one to kind of supplement in. So it wasn't so good like beforehand, but now because we have Dark-Blade Agent, we might want to surveil, and surveilling might actually help us find the cards we want. And this is a 1/4, so it's got a good butt on it, make it a good blocker. So we can supplement our cards with that, and we have got 2 of them. All right, so we got two, and allows us to surveil, which activates our Dark-Blade Agent if we can get it out. So now what do we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Well, not the best, but it could be worse. We could also throw in a leapfrog, right, and get 14. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's 14 creatures. Doesn't seem ideal, okay, but 14 creatures means we'd get 10 pieces of removal. So let's take a look at our removal here. So I'm going to slide these guys over. So there's our 14 creatures. Okay, so there's things like Thought Eraser, which helps us surveil, but it also disrupts their hand. That could actually be okay. Artful Takedown taps target creature, and also target creature gets -2/-4. That's actually really good, right? So I think we need the Artful Takedowns. That can actually like just get rid of get rid of a blocker and also destroy like a big fatty that they might have. Discovery Dispersal looks pretty good too as a removal. So like we can either surveil if we need to, or we can just and draw a card, or we can just remove. Unexplained Disappearance. So returning a creature to opponent's hand is actually pretty good. Capture Shield is pretty good. Devious Cover-Up. Okay, so Devious Cover-Up's a 4-mana counter spell. You know, it's, man, these are all good. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This one is just kind of okay. Severed Strands. Okay, so sack a creature. You gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness, but allows you to destroy target creature, any creature, as long as it doesn't have hexproof. So like that's like almost too good. We could really use the Mephitic Vapors against our opponents, like 1/1s and stuff like that, if they're playing anything like that, and Dead Weight. All right, so here's the thing. We're playing fairly creature light, so we're going to have a lot of ways to disrupt our opponent's creatures if we're going to survive. All right, so we need 8. We have 14, so that means we need 10 pieces of removal. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's take ones that are just straight up removal. So we got Severed Strands, Mephitic Vapors. Severed Strands, Mephitic Vapors, Dead Weight. All right, so those ones are just straight up removal. That's 4 cards. All right, we have Artful Takedowns, right, which are pretty good. Again, just straight up removal. Let's see. Now, Discovery Dispersal is a bounce back to hand, right? So that's maybe not the best. Same thing with Unexplained Disappearance, but Unexplained Disappearance is a little bit cheaper, but it also has Surveil in it, so maybe. Capture Sphere is like almost a must. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can do 3 more. Okay, so we have 3 more from from these. So 3 of these 5 that we can take if we wanted to go this way. I think Devious Cover-Up is kind of like the way we might want to go, especially if we can get to 4 mana, like using Plaguecrafters and get a Darkblade Agent down or something like that, and then just counter our opponents and stuff like that. So maybe that. And so one more, either Thought Eraser, Unexplained Disappearance, or Discovery Dispersal. I think I really don't know. I think just Discovery Dispersal, probably. It probably just gives us the most options. All right, and anyways, so that's what I would do. Now, here's the thing. I'm not sure how I feel about this. Like, I like Dimir. That's probably my favorite color set. But is this strong enough? Like, so if I was to play this against the Selesnya deck that I previously built, would I be able to beat it? Maybe, because they have things like Mephitic Vapors, right? Like, all creatures get -1/-1 till end of turn. But that's more for like if you're doing like 1/1 tokens and stuff like that. A lot of those ones are 2/2s. So, like, I don't know. I'm not sure if, like, we got a lot of blockers. Now, we don't have, like, we're basically relying on, here's the thing, we're relying on just a few creatures to win us the game. Okay, so like we got Nightveil Predator, Darkblade Agent, Muse Drake, those ones like flyers. If our opponent can nullify these things, like, then like we don't have a lot. Still, I guess it would depend on your style. I say we can go either one. Like, they're probably equally about the same. Like, you know, that you could go either way with this. If you're more of a control-y type player, then this is definitely the way to go. And if you like aggro, then the Selesnya one would be definitely the way to go as well. The thing is, the Selesnya one is just like potentially risky, right? Because, like, you know, there's dead weight. There's, like, we just got so much removal, right? Like, their opponent can just like, we can just like destroy our opponent's stuff. Like, use like Burglar Rat, you know, disrupt your opponent's card, and then, you know, block it. Then later on, sack it and then sack it to destroy a creature. Then get your Plaguecrafter out to destroy it. Like, there's a lot of control here. It's very flavorful. Yeah, I would say this is definitely playable. Now, as for lands, if you wanted to play this, so we got 1 Dimir Guildgate, which is something I would definitely put in there. Okay, but again, let's go back and count mana symbols, right? Always fun. So we got 1, 2, we'll just start with blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So 18 blue symbols. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18, 18. So we have 24 cards. That means we need 16 lands. This is both. So I would say probably, like, this is double black, double blue, double black. But we do have double blue here, so I might favor blue by the 1. So we'll take, we need, what, 16, was it? So there's 15 after this. So I'd say 8 blue, so 8 islands, and 7 swamps. So that's what I would do with this. Now, lastly, like, I would probably go with this and try it out in my game 1. If I just got crushed and it wasn't working, then I would quickly change my deck to the Selesnya deck. So we've actually got 2 decks that are actually viable with this set. Now, the last thing I would do is look over and see what we could do if we were going to build a Golgari deck. Okay, because that's kind of the last one we got to look at. We've looked at green, we've looked at black, and we can go and see, is there anything worthwhile playing in Golgari? Okay, so remember, black didn't have a ton of creatures, had the 2 Plaguecrafters, but it had a lot of good removal. Okay, so then we look at Golgari, we got Rhizome Lurcher. It enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the number of creatures in your graveyard. Now, we've got no way to really get a ton of creatures in our graveyard, and because we're playing sealed, we just have fewer cards, so we can't really even just mill ourselves, right? Like, we could technically play like Drowned Secrets with that whenever we play, like, maybe like Splash In, and like, I don't know, I don't even think that would work. So never mind. Okay, we got Pitiless Gorgon, which is a 3-mana 2/2 with Death Touch. Okay, that's fine, but, you know, it's just a 2/2 with Death Touch. Like, eventually, like, your opponent's going to trade off with it. Actually, I have 2 of those and another Rhizome Lurcher. So these are like pretty much all the Golgari cards I have, except Golgari Locket and Molder Hulk. And this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature or card in your graveyard. But here's the thing, if I go black, if they said in all graveyards, then it'd be fine. But we just won't, if we play Golgari, we just won't have enough creatures to make do with anything here. Like, we won't have a lot of creatures in our graveyard. And so, you know, and this is like a 9 mana creature. I guess it costs less for whatever casting, but we just don't have that many creatures. And so I'm afraid that if we played this deck and we just like played against a control deck or something like that, we would just get crushed. So I would say, given the cards that I have, not saying Golgari is terrible, but given the cards that I got, I don't think Golgari is a viable strategy. So I would say the two we want to play is either Selesnya or Dimir. If you wanted to play the control-y game, which is what I would probably do, is I would go with Dimir and see how it went, just because I think it'd be more fun. If you're the kind of aggro type person, then definitely go with Selesnya. And the good thing is that they're totally different colors. So, like, we got white-green here and blue-black, right? So I know white-green and it's like a red card. Here, let's do this. All right, so we got white, green, blue, black. And the good thing is that we can actually sleeve these up separately, right? And you can almost play 2 different decks. So you could try this deck in your first match, see how you did, and if you just got crushed or you didn't like it and it didn't work out like you think it was, like then you can always switch to this deck and see how you do, right? And you actually have 2 completely viable decks that are not sharing a color. So, you know, it's just like, you could, like, technically you could say, okay, I want to sideboard, because I believe in sealed, that your sideboard is your whole reserve of cards. So you could say, like, okay, I'm going to play this start off with this deck, and then when you go to sideboard, you switch over and just play a completely different deck, right? And like, your opponent might put in a lot of stuff for removing like these like 1/1s and stuff like that, because I think you're doing big creature aggro, but then you switch over and you're suddenly a control shell, or you play a control and then they change over for control and you end up playing a completely different color. So it's like something you could do as well. And I think both decks are actually fairly viable. But anyways, that's how I would build these decks.